Hello and welcome to episode 5 of The Week That Was, a weekly program where we review the headlines of the week. My pleasure to welcome the well-known journalist and the group editor of Herald Publication, Mr. Sujay Gupta. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
This week we look at the headlines starting December 12th, and this week we have a packed schedule as always. To begin with, on Sunday, December 12th, we had this headline that the GMC should be named as the Satari Medical College, and that too by the BJP MLAs, because there were allegations that about 85% of the vacancies of LDCs in GMC were allocated to people or candidates from Porye and Valpoi. Also added to that, there was the Panjim MLA alleging that even in the PWD, post was sold for as high as 35 lakh rupees for one post. And the entire examination process to select candidates on merits was compromised.
Right. Well, the thing is, this is not new. It has just come out into the open, and I wonder if this would have happened if this was any other peaceful period and not running up to the polls in February 2022. So I think the way we look at it is this: is that we must understand that as far as any government recruitments are concerned, one should see to it that it is always done on merit, because meritocracy has taken an absolute backseat, and government posts are by and large allocated according to political affiliations and so on and so forth. Now this needs to kind of be relooked at, because what happens is that different ministers and different people heading governments and in powerful positions see to it that they turn around and allocate jobs and allocate positions completely based on their political compulsions and affiliations. Now, this is not something that only say Bishwajit Rane is allegedly doing for the GMC. This would hold true for people in different departments, whether it's power or PWD or even agriculture and so on and so forth, or tourism and everything. And obviously, what happens is in GMC it gets highlighted because it's such an important division. Yeah. The only way this can be solved, and let's look at a solution, because we know what the problem is. The solution is essentially have a proper services recruitment board where the vacancies are sent, they are selected professionally and allocated. The moment you take this power of appointing people in the hands of the minister, then this problem will obviously get solved. Because what happens is jobs these days are no longer allocated for the benefit of society or for the smoother running of the government. Jobs are actually nothing but political currency, and to get votes you give them jobs, and as long as this trend continues, this will go on across all departments.
And there is a fear, like as it is abroad, that many meritorious students would move away from government job and join the private sector.
Yes.
Now, moving on to December 14, that is Tuesday, you have a very critical political move. The strongman as Salset, as he was always known as, Churchill Alemao, merges his legislative wing of the NCP into the TMC and then joins the TMC. And a link to that, on Wednesday 15th of December, we have the big tie-up between the TMC and MGP. How do you look at these two moves, and how critical are they for Goan politics?
Well, they are fairly significant in the sense that also the act of Churchill Alemao merging his party or merging his legislative wing into TMC, that again has been challenged. That is primarily because Churchill didn't want to cease to become an MLA for another 2 months, and which is why he did this, because I don't see any sense he could have easily resigned and joined. but he obviously wanted to have the perks and privileges of being an MLA for another 40 odd days. So that's there. But and I think that challenge will happen and will run its course. I'm not putting so much of significance into the act of merging as opposed to act of resigning. That will be sorted out in due course. But yes, the issue is this: his joining. I would say that there would be mixed reactions to it. Of course, undoubtedly he has got a large say in parts of Benali and other areas, and his joining will give TMC some kind of a electoral boost or edge in that area, because he's been a veteran politician. We'll see how it kind of pans out. Yeah. But to any new party to get a former chief minister and somebody who's been an MLA so many times, it obviously comes with its added advantages. But at the same time, since he's been around for a long time, there are positives and there are also negatives. So it'll be entirely up to the TMC to figure out how to balance it and maximize this. But coming to the MGP alliance, I would say that is indeed could be a potential game changer, because what happens is, you see, the TMC has been slowly building up. If you look at their joinings have also gone up, and the base of the party is growing. But at the same time, what happens is that they also needed a bit of a fillip in North Goa and in certain bastions that take a little longer to kind of penetrate, as it were. I mean, if you look at Ponda, the Ponda Taluka, Priol, Matkai, Shiroda, Ponda, Mandre, Perne in the north, even parts of, say, Satri.
MGP has this base.
MGP has its base for a long time, so it becomes that more difficult for a new dispensation to come and gain ground. Because to be honest, in these areas, neither the Congress has or any other party has been able to establish, because there are certain seats that the MGP is going on winning, like Matkai and Priol. By default, Priol only recently that whole MGP stranglehold was broken in the last election. But by and large, these are areas where where they have a very, very strong base. And you must also take into account that the BJP is not that strong in many areas, as it were, because the BJP, because of its internal differences, there are a lot of people who are going to BJP supporters who will not vote for the BJP this time.
And essentially it was the BJP-MGP alliance which helped the BJP to penetrate.
So there will be a lot of MGP votes coming in, and at the same time there will be a lot of BJP votes moving to the MGP as well. So I think that's going to be pretty significant across, say, at least 6 to 7 constituencies, and that will only help because the TMC on its own may not have done as well in those constituencies as the MGP is likely to do, because of the history of those areas and the way those areas are voting.
Moving on to Thursday, December 16th, we have this, Herald calls it the climax.
Yes.
The sex scandal tainted BJP minister Milind Naik resigns. Now, the Congress had given them a forewarning of what was to come, that they would expose this name, and 15 days before they had sounded the alarm bell that this is happening and the CM has to take a call on this minister. Do you think that this is a little too late because it played out and then the climax?
See, what happens is, let's look at this politically and strategically. The merits or the demerits of the case per se, let's let the investigative agencies sort out. Okay. And of course, there is no denying the fact that if a minister is embroiled in a situation like this, it is very seedy, it is very unbecoming, it is something that sickens people to the core, and the BJP will have to pay for it, because there will be a large section of people, especially women, who are absolutely disgusted with whatever is going on. The allegations of the minister pressurizing this woman from Bihar into various uncompromising acts in return for favors and threats. Whatever, these are allegations, and they will play out. The point here is that the Congress could have handled this a little better. What has happened is, with two politicians like Sankalp Amonkar and Girish Chodankar directly in the forefront of this whole attack, what has now happened is, it's very easy for the BJP to turn around and say this is nothing but a political game that they are playing to before the elections. If this was genuinely true, and if the evidence was there, a smarter thing would have been to kind of get somebody else to front it or do it. Because right now what has happened is the whole focus has moved away from the case per se and got into a BJP versus Congress political thing. Now, if the Congress's aim was to just do politics, the smarter thing would have been not to directly get into the firing line and do it through proxy. Because right now it's become easier for the BJP to go and justify to the people, look, there's nothing in it, and it's become nothing but political, and the Congress is using this to get some political brownie points and corner million. So I don't think it's been strategically it's one of the best things that the Congress has done. However, morally and ethically, an act of this nature, if proven to be true, needs to be handled properly. Having said all that, the Congress's limited success has been they have managed to corner the minister and got him to resign, and that of course is a slap on the face, as it were, to the BJP's to the BJP party and its image. So to that extent, the Congress has been successful. Let us see how this plays out.
Now, people may have a question mark over this, that now the CM has promised investigation, action if somebody is guilty. But do you think there will be a closure to this before the election?
No, there won't be any closure. This will play out, because what has happened is, initially, if you do recall, the CM and the BJP had tried to defend the minister, and then when the name calling happened and other things, they would have suddenly got a nudge from the higher ups, because this wouldn't have happened if there was not a little tap from the centre to tell them, look, you better do it, otherwise, and also the Prime Minister is coming today, and we are shooting this on Saturday. The Prime Minister is coming tomorrow on Sunday, when this would play out. So, in a way, I think it's been done primarily because of that. So, to the limited extent, I would say that the Congress has been successful.
Looking at the headlines of December 17th on the Herald, you find there is, for the first time, somebody is moving out of the BJP, and that to an ex-minister, Alina Saldana. And her justification is that this party is no longer the party of Manohar Parrikar and Matani Saldana. Also, she has put forth this constant battle that is taking place between the activists and the government with regard to environment. And she says this double tracking would destroy people's home, and that is not what her conscience tells her to do, and she would stand by. So therefore, she has decided to step out.
See, Alina is right in what she's been saying, in the sense that she's probably been the only MLA and a former minister of the BJP government who's been steadfastly with the people when it comes to protesting against the issues of double tracking and the other linear projects which are actually destroying Goa. So she's been on the forefront, she's stood with people, she's walked on the railway tracks, and she also she did her best to convince the party. In fact, when she was in the BJP, she got the Chief Minister to come and do an inspection on those tracks. She got promises out of the Chief Minister saying that they would look into it very seriously. But I think when the whole land acquisition for the double tracking happened, and the manner in which the land acquisition was rushed through, and people's objections were just taken but never really looked at, and when suddenly the orders were given. So I feel that, to that extent, Alina is right when she says that this party is no longer the party, and it was getting really uncomfortable for her to be a BJP MLA and yet agitate against the party for a long time. So this was bound to happen. However, it remains to be seen how much of traction Alina will get as a MLA and politician, because it all boil down to how much she has delivered for the constituency there. Because the double tracking and 3 linear projects will not be the only issues on which the people of Kortali will go to the polls. Yeah. So it all depends on the kind of development work and other things that she has done there. So even though she has moved out of the party for the right reasons, and of course she joined the AAP now, but whether she succeeds or not will also depend on other factors beyond the 3 linear projects. Let's look at that.
And related to this, on December 18th, on Saturday, that is today, the Herald has the front page story about Rohan County.
Yes.
And I like the description. It says, Rohan County had more than one leg in the Congress.
Yes.
And 15 days prior, he had attacked the CM saying that he should resign because of corruption.
That's so correct. That's so correct. See, there's something very interesting that I'd like to read out from there itself. Take the opportunity to read out something interesting, which is there in the paper as well. But for our viewers, it will be interesting. Now, Rohan County on November 9th, which is not too long ago, had said this after all his supporters had joined the Congress. Let's not forget that on November 9th, all his supporters had joined the Congress and Rohan was supposed to follow suit. Yeah. On November 9th, Rohan County says, the main priority is to displace the current state government, and that can only happen by presenting a united opposition. This is Rowan County on November 9th. On December 17th, which is a month and say 8 days later, he says, I will take the issues of the state forward by working with CM Sawant. BJP will attain absolute majority and Modi will again become the PM of India. So basically in say 38-39 days time, Rowan County takes an absolute U-turn. Earlier he says there has to be united opposition against the CM, and 38 days later he says Modi should become the Prime Minister of India. What happened in those 38 days for Rowan County's world to completely change? We don't know, we can only guess. And of course we are all guessing. I'm sure many of our guesses will also be right. Also I would like to point out some other things that Rowan County said. He said after the former the former Goa governor and the present Meghalaya governor Satyapal Malik had, in an interview to Rajdeep Sardesai of India Today, had spoken extensively about the corruption in Goa, and he said everything in Goa is corrupt, the governance that is. Yeah. Rowan County had said, the Chief Minister has no right to continue and must resign or be sacked, and President's rule should be imposed in the state. During my interaction with Malik when he was Goa governor, he said that he had never seen a more corrupt government. Rowan County had also spoken about CM Sawant and said, time and again he is proved to be less of a Goa CM and more of BJP's Delhi representative, acting in favor of BJP's interests in neighbouring states. Be it Madhai or Mole, our CM's loyalties are to the opposite side and not Goans. And Rowan County had also, if you recall, during the COVID time, had referred to Chief Minister Pramod Sawant as a pappu. Yeah. Okay. So my question to Rowan County is, and as they say in Hindi, pappu kya pass ho gaya? Because if he was a pappu now, he has obviously got, pappu has passed. Yeah. So that Rowan County has joined the pappu who he has passed him right now. But the real reason why this has happened needs to be really looked into, because we really don't know what the BJP presented before him. You know, whether it was an opportunity for development or whether it was a file, we don't know. But whatever happened, it was a very strong presentation which made Rowan County suddenly turn saffron and go to the BJP office and join the BJP with band, baja and barat, standing right next to the very Chief Minister who he had called a pappu.
Just as a footnote to all these discussions, you know, given the controversies that have surrounded this government, you know, there is a parliamentary norm that the government of the day has to resign before the elections to have a free and fair election. Right. Now in Goa, it has so happened that the CM, if he wins the election, resigns today, and tomorrow he takes oath as the CM for the next term. So do you think that it's time that this norm is followed? Because we take the niceties of the parliamentary system, but those things which are not very comfortable for the government of the day doesn't happen.
Yeah, but Dr. Freddy, you see, even in the centre, the Prime Minister doesn't resign when the election process is going on. He still remains the Prime Minister, and only after the polls come does he actually resign and become. So I think if one looks at it, one is to look at a pan India situation, not just a Goa situation. Because if you remember, even when Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated, Chandrasekhar was the caretaker Prime Minister because the elections were already going on. Yeah. And he continues as the caretaker Prime Minister until the results come in till the last day it happens. So I'm saying yes, there is a merit in the fact that that the government of the day must resign before the poll process starts or after the code of conduct comes in. But again, what happens is then somebody has to run the administration in that vacuum. So a process needs to be put in place as to how a government should run. Maybe there should be President's rule, and during that period and an election should happen under President's rule. There is a merit in what you are saying, and I wish this should be considered. I'm all for it, because I agree that whatever said and done, you still have a Chief Minister in place and he signs certain files. He may not take major decisions, but he can at least, even in the guise of doing routine work, a lot of things can actually happen. So I understand that completely.
So I'm afraid that this is all that we can pack into this week's review of the headlines. I thank my guest, Mr. Sujay Gupta, Group Editor of Herald Publications, for his insights, analysis, and fantastic takes on the news that we read in the newspapers, which is basically factual. We thank you for joining us. We hope that you join us again for the next week. Thank you very much. Keep watching The Week That Was.